Bobby Darin did not die like a peaceful legend fading into the sunset. He left this world after what seemed like a routine dental visit, a detail so small it almost felt harmless. Yet it opened the final chapter for a heart that had been worn down by a lifelong war with illness since he was a child. And what makes this story even more chilling is that throughout his short life, Bobby was not only racing against music, film, the Las Vegas stage, or the enormous shadow of Frank Sinatra. He was racing against death itself. Today on Ryan's Hollywood Uncovered, I will take you into the story of Bobby Darin, not as a dusty golden statue in a Hollywood museum, but as a real human being. A weak little boy who was once told he might not live past his teenage years. A bold young man who dared to say he wanted to surpass Sinatra. An artist who used the stage to open doors for others. A man broken by a family secret that had been buried for far too long. And a heart, both literally and emotionally, that kept trying to beat until the very last second. If you want me to explore any more movies, TV shows, or Hollywood secrets, just comment right below. I'm Ryan. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and let's begin exploring the main content of this video together. Born Against Time. Before Bobby Darin became a name shouted under the stage lights, he was simply Walden Robert Casado, born on May 14, 1936, in New York. Behind that name was not a glamorous childhood, but one covered in illness, family secrets, and the feeling that time was always chasing him. From a young age, Bobby had to fight against bouts of rheumatic fever that seriously damaged his heart. While other children ran and played in the streets, he had to learn how to live slowly, carefully, and listen to adults whisper about his fragile health. One doctor once said that if Bobby lived past the age of 16, it would be a miracle. That cruel prediction created a fierce fire inside him. Bobby refused to live small just because his body was weak. If his time was short, he wanted it to burn brightly. He threw himself toward music, the stage, and fame as if he were racing against fate. Because he did not have many friends, Bobby found joy in chess, a game where intelligence mattered more than physical strength. That game taught him how to calculate, to be patient, and to always think one step ahead. Even after he became famous, he still loved chess, and at one point, he even wanted to include it in a television program and organize a tournament. When his family moved to the Bronx, Bobby began stepping out of the sick room at the Bronx High School of Science. He joined the band, performed on small stages, and gradually realized that he could be seen. Bobby Darin's ambition did not come only from confidence, but also from the fear of losing everything too soon. And that is what made him live, sing, and dream bigger than almost anyone else. The first breakthrough. Bobby went to college, but music called to him more strongly than any degree. He dropped out to pursue art full-time, beginning not in the spotlight as a singer, but by writing songs and trying to find his way into the industry from behind the door. His meeting with Don Kirshner did not immediately create major success, but it placed Bobby in the right current where important opportunities could appear at any moment. During those early years, Bobby met Connie Francis, a chapter in his life that was both beautiful and painful. He did not just write songs for her. He loved her with a young, intense, and deeply passionate love. According to many accounts, Bobby once wanted to run away with Connie, but Connie's father opposed the relationship, and in the end, they were separated. Later, Connie was said to have regretted listening to her family, because some people, when they leave behind an emptiness that nothing can easily fill. Bobby's career truly exploded only after he left Decca and signed with Atco. From a very ordinary moment with DJ Murray Kaufman, he caught a random idea about taking a bath and turned it into Splish Splash. In a short time, Bobby wrote a lively, playful, and unforgettable rock and roll song. The track quickly blew up, making him the voice of teenage dance floors and placing him alongside the young idols who were driving audiences wild. But Bobby Darin did not want to stop at the image of a charming young man with one big hit. Many artists could have been satisfied with that position, but Bobby was not. He did not want to be boxed in as an easy-to-sell product for radio or teen magazines. In his mind, there was always a bigger stage, a bolder ambition to stand alongside the greats. And what made Bobby special was that he was never afraid to say it out loud. Bobby Darin idolized Frank Sinatra, but idolizing someone does not mean bowing down forever. To Bobby, Sinatra was like a mountain, and he wanted to climb higher. When he declared that he wanted to become bigger than Sinatra, it sounded arrogant, even insane. But in classic Hollywood, where egos could be as large as the billboards on Sunset Boulevard, arrogance was sometimes the way an artist protected himself from being swallowed whole. And Bobby had reason to believe in himself. He did not only sing rock and roll. He could change styles, control a stage, read an audience, act, do television, and step into film. He wanted to become a complete entertainer. The kind of star whose audience could not separate the lines between singer, actor, host, and cultural icon. Sinatra had done that. Bobby wanted to do it again, but faster, younger, and bolder. Then Mac the Knife arrived like a stunning turn. It was not a cute teen song or a safe formula, but a polished, sharp recording that moved Bobby away from the ranks of youth idols and into the territory of major artists. The song climbed the charts, stayed at #1 for many weeks, and made audiences look at Bobby in a different way. But success that huge can also become a gilded cage, because that very song slowly overshadowed many other parts of his career. Later, some lazy people called Bobby Darin a one-hit wonder, and that was deeply unfair. Mac the Knife was not his only milestone. It was only one of many successes. Bobby had many songs embraced by the public, many recordings that reached high chart positions, and a career far more diverse than the label of one big hit. But public memory often prefers simple stories: one star, one song, one early death. Bobby Darin was not that simple. He kept changing direction because of art, because of the times, and because of the cracks inside himself. Fame, Love, and the Mask. After Mac the Knife, Bobby entered Las Vegas like a gust of wind, carrying the smell of cigarette smoke, neon lights, and expensive drinks. Vegas at that time was not only a place to perform, it was the throne of entertainers who knew how to control a room. You did not only need a voice, you needed presence. You needed the ability to make the person sitting at the front table feel seen, while the person at the back of the room still believed you were singing just for them. Bobby had that. He became a major name in Las Vegas. And when Bobby walked onto the stage, people understood that they were watching an artist who did not play it safe. He could be witty, sharp, charming, arrogant, generous, and intense, all in the same night. Sammy Davis Jr. respected him deeply. According to stories told later, Sammy considered Bobby one of the greatest entertainers, and he supposedly did not want to go on stage right after Bobby because he knew the audience had just witnessed a standard that was too high. You have to understand how big that was. Sammy Davis Jr. was not someone easily overshadowed. But if the lights of Vegas gave Bobby a crown, they also placed him in a world where his image always had to be perfect. And Bobby was not perfect. He knew that. His body was still weak. His hair was thinning. He could use a hairpiece to fool the audience's eyes, but he could not fool the mirror. A man who seemed as arrogant as Bobby was actually always being chased by the fear of being exposed. Not exposed for singing a wrong note, but exposed as someone more fragile than the image he sold to the world. I think this is what classic Hollywood often hid. Famous men of that era were expected to be untouchable. They had to be charming, strong, witty, and in control of everything. But Bobby Darin was a human being, living with a heart damaged since childhood, with a family secret that had not yet been revealed, and with the fear that every success might be his last. He wore confidence like armor, and sometimes that armor made others think he was colder, more arrogant, and harder to approach than he really was. If the story had stopped at music, Bobby would have already been complicated enough. But Hollywood also called him. And Bobby, with an ambition that refused to stand still, answered. He stepped into television, then film. In the movie Come September, he met Sandra Dee, one of the bright young faces of the time, fragile and beautiful, sweet, and loved by the public as a symbol of innocence from an era. When Bobby and Sandra came together, Hollywood had what it always craved, a perfect couple to frame on magazine covers. From the outside, they looked like a dream built by the studio. A charming, ambitious, famous singer. A beautiful young actress, gentle and appealing to audiences. They fell in love, got married, and had a child. But married life was not a poster. Bobby and Sandra did not enter that marriage like two ordinary people looking for peace. They were both products of fame, pressure, private desires, and personal wounds. According to stories told later, the relationship between them grew more and more distant. Bobby had strong emotional and physical needs, while Sandra was not on the same rhythm as him. They could appear as a golden couple in front of the cameras, but inside, the distance kept growing. Sandra later spoke about how Bobby seemed to wake up one morning and no longer want to continue the marriage. That sentence sounds simple, but it is terribly painful. Because sometimes a marriage does not collapse with an explosion. It simply turns off the lights room by room. Bobby's health likely pulled darkness into that marriage as well. When a man knows his heart is uncertain, he may love more intensely, but he may also run away faster. Bobby was always being pushed from behind by time. He wanted to do more, have more, experience more. And the person living beside him had to endure that harsh pace too. Not everyone can love someone who is living as if the clock is about to break. But Bobby did not use fame only to serve himself. This is the part that people who call him an overhyped star often ignore. He had a very real generosity. In the entertainment world, where many people guard opportunities for themselves like gold in a safe, Bobby opened doors for friends, fellow artists, and people he believed deserved to be seen. He helped others get roles, stages, chances on television, and opportunities in film. The line between Bobby and the manager, between work and family, between his personal career and his responsibility to others, often became very blurred. Politics and broken truths. What makes me truly respect Bobby Darin is that he did not live inside the glamorous bubble of the entertainment industry. He cared about political and social life and openly supported the civil rights movement at a time when standing for equality could cost an artist audiences contracts and favor from club owners. Bobby did not just speak to look good. He used his own position to fight against the discrimination that black artists had to endure in the entertainment industry. One notable story happened at the Copacabana when Bobby wanted George Kirby, an African-American performer, to open for him. The club owner refused, and Bobby responded very clearly if Kirby was not allowed on stage, he would not perform. He also gave a similar opportunity to Flip Wilson. Those minutes of appearing on stage were not only an opening act, but a public endorsement from a major star. Later, when Bobby needed support, Flip Wilson returned the favor by helping him appear on his NBC show. But integrity always has a price. Bobby did not only quietly help people backstage, he also marched, spoke out, and allowed his political views to directly affect his music. At one point, he moved away from the polished lounge image people knew and stepped into a folk and protest sound, singing songs with a clearer social spirit. Some audiences did not understand. Some people in the industry did not like it, and Las Vegas, the place that had once embraced him, began to feel cold. Then, Robert F. Kennedy appeared in Bobby's life like a source of hope. Bobby admired RFK, supported his presidential campaign, and saw in Kennedy the image of an America that could be fairer, kinder, and braver. But when RFK was assassinated, Bobby was at the same hotel where the tragedy happened. That death devastated him deeply because the man he had placed his faith in had been taken away by violence right at the moment when Bobby himself was sacrificing part of his career for his political beliefs. And after that shock, Bobby had to face an even more brutal family truth. The woman he had always called his mother was actually his grandmother, while Nina, the woman he thought was his sister, was really his birth mother. That secret came from the social shame of the time, when pregnancy outside marriage could destroy a young woman's reputation. Bobby had grown up inside a family performance without knowing he was the central character. All his life, he had fought illness and built his identity through willpower and art, only to discover that even the most basic story about himself was not true. The mother was not his mother. The sister was not his sister. And Nina still refused to reveal who his real father was. This is the kind of secret Hollywood never knows how to handle, because it does not come with a beautiful crying scene under the lights. It is the quiet collapse of identity. A man can endure criticism, a packed performance schedule, and audiences turning away. But when family, the final place that should have been truth, becomes a performance lasting for decades, that wound reaches the deepest place. After learning the truth about his family, Bobby was said to have withdrawn from public life for a time and lived in isolation for nearly a year in a trailer. That image is chilling. A man who once stood under the lights of Las Vegas, who was once cheered by audiences, who once dreamed of surpassing Sinatra, now shrinking into a small space far away from everything. Not because he had run out of talent, but because something inside him seemed to have broken. During that period, Bobby was said to have given away much of his fortune. Maybe it was generosity, or maybe it was a feeling of disillusionment with material things when everything he had accumulated could no longer answer the biggest question. Where do I really come from? His family was also covered in secrets. His grandmother Polly, the woman he once believed was his mother, was said to have had ties to the vaudeville stage, an old entertainment world that demanded artists know how to sing, act, joke, and survive by instinct in front of tough audiences. Meanwhile, Sam Casado, the man Bobby once believed was his father, belonged to a darker chapter, with different stories connected to debt crime and Frank Costello. Whatever version was closer to the truth, Bobby still grew up among pieces of a story that were never completely clean. Secrecy, shame, and concealment. But from that darkness, he he still tried to become someone who had a good influence, opened doors for other artists, and lived as if success only truly mattered when it created opportunities for people beyond himself. The final heartbeat. And yet, every time Bobby Darin tried to step into the light, the darkness pulled him back. After the collapse caused by RFK's death and the shock of his family's secret, his career no longer operated the way it once had. Music changed, young audiences chased new sounds, and Bobby had to fight to return while his body grew weaker and weaker. The heart that had been damaged by childhood rheumatic fever eventually forced him to undergo open-heart surgery to replace a valve with an artificial one. The operation was successful, but it took precious time away from him on stage. To Bobby, every month without performing felt like a piece of life being stolen. As soon as he could, he returned to performing. But returning did not mean being healed. There were performances where he was so weak that he had to use oxygen during the show. The audience saw the smile, the voice, and the professionalism. Behind the scenes, his body was sending urgent warning signals. What makes Bobby both admirable and heartbreaking is that he almost did not know how to stop. Maybe he understood that he needed rest, but for someone who had spent his whole life fighting a prediction of death, resting may have felt like surrender. He wanted to prove that he was still there, still valuable, still not defeated by time. Then, a dental visit that seemed completely ordinary became a fatal turning point. Because of his heart condition, Bobby needed antibiotics before the procedure to prevent infection. But according to stories told later, that did not happen. One small detail opened the way for infection, then sepsis, and finally the last crisis of his heart. When his condition worsened, Bobby had to go into another open-heart surgery. That image is painful. A man who once made major stages wait for his name, now walking into a hospital to hand his heart over to the knife one more time. The surgery was considered technically successful, but Bobby Darin never woke up. He died while still very young, leaving deep sorrow among fans and colleagues. But as often happens with stars who leave too soon, some people ask the question, was he truly great, or did death make him great? With Bobby, that question leaves out far too much. He did not have only one famous song. Bobby Darin conquered the charts, the Las Vegas stage, television, and film. He was honored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Songwriters Hall of Fame received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and was also someone who dared to stand for civil rights politics and opportunities for other artists. What Bobby left behind was not only achievement, but a profound question. How does a person live when he knows his time may be shorter than everyone else's? Bobby chose to live. Big love, fast work, constantly. Change his style as the times changed, and turn every heartbeat into proof that he had existed. The tragedy of Bobby Darin was not only that he died young, but that he lived his whole life with the sound of a countdown clock. Illness counted down his body. Hollywood counted down his fame. Family counted down its secrets, and politics counted down its hope. But amid all those ticking sounds, Bobby still sang, still laughed, still walked onto the stage, and in the end, left behind a mark that no one could erase. The greatest lesson from Bobby Darin's story is that we should never reduce a person to one song, one scandal, or one death. The spotlight is only the part the audience can see. Behind it are illness, family secrets, difficult choices, and the times when an artist had to stand up even when his body almost would not let him. Bobby was not perfect. He was proud, ambitious, and sometimes too impatient. But he was also someone who looked at a childhood threatened by illness and refused to disappear. He did not let a weak heart decide the size of his dream. So, if someone says Bobby Darin was only the star of one hit, remember the entire life he fought for. Remember the boy who was not allowed to run, but still went farther than many healthy people. Remember the man who dared to challenge Sinatra's shadow, dared to leave the easy-to-sell formula to follow his political beliefs, and dared to open doors for black artists on major stages. And finally, remember that heart, a weak, damaged heart that turned fear into music, loneliness into a stage, and a short life into a legacy, still spoken of many decades later. If Bobby Darin's story moved you, let me know which moment in his life you think was the most painful and which of his songs still lives in your memory. Don't forget to like, subscribe to Ryan's Hollywood Uncovered, and comment with the old Hollywood figure you want me to explore next. I'm Ryan. Thank you for staying until the end of the video, and thank you for listening to a story not only about fame, but also about courage, truth wounds, and the price of trying to shine when fate kept trying to put you out. See you in the next video, where we will continue opening the old doors of Hollywood and take a closer look at the secrets the golden lights have hidden for far too long.